Welcome to Adventure Dad. Today we're going to talk about how we finished our garage floor as part of our ongoing series about finishing our garage and trying to create a proper workspace. About 6 weeks ago we redid the garage floors. I love them. It has been great. I'm not a garage floor paint type guy, but the increase in traction and the ability to roll over expansion joints that I filled as part of this process has been immense. It's been amazing. Really like these floors. One of the things I'm going to talk about in this video is how much time this took. However, 6 weeks later, I've forgotten all about it, and all I can think about is how much I like my floors, and they're no longer slippery.
That's what I got at the yard sale. It's music.
Oh, cool. I like that.
They have Chinese wine.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you want to get some?
No, I'm going to finish this video, and then I'll be done, okay? All right, thanks, bud. So we're finally done with our garage floor project, which started with just the desire to fill the expansion seams in my garage that were really deep and causing problems with casters. I did a lot of research, quite a bit of research actually, trying to find the right product. By the time I got done doing all my research for crack filler and what type to clean and how to clean and which product, and I had spreadsheets going because some of the products needed extra of this, maybe not of that, I came across GarageFlooring, LLC online, did some emailing back and forth with tech support and also the vice president of the company, Justin Kraus, and they all recommended that I use this 829 two-part floor sealant. Fills the gap and then it hardens. It doesn't go to quite a concrete hardness. There's still a little bit, at least so far now, about 4 days after, still has a little bit of elasticity, but not much, just a little bit. It does look like it took paint really well. So that was the main part of this project, is I wanted to be able to roll casters. And as you can see, I'm rolling right across 4 joints right now, no problem, which I couldn't do before. The seam sealant, it's 2 1-gallon cans, you mix together equally. I ended up having about 15% left of each can. I think I waited a little bit too long to peel up the tape on my main push there. And that product was $119.99, so $120 for the seam sealant. I was really impressed. It's been about 3.5 hours since I applied the seam sealant. You know, you're supposed to work with it when it's just tacky enough, and I'm just experimenting right now to see when that will be. Well, good morning. This is day 4 of the garage floor project. Well, day 5 if you count move out, but working on the garage floor. This is day 4 of the project. Yesterday was putting down this seam sealant, this joint sealant from GarageFlooring. I didn't know how it was going to work out, and once again, this is the whole impetus for the project. I wanted to be able to get casters over these giant divots here. So this now has been on for about 12 hours, which is their minimum cure time before a recoat. And the floor went on pretty well. Had I known it was going to go on this well, I wouldn't have done the paint. Overall, I'm really happy with it, but it was a ton of work to get to right here. But the biggest problem I had was sweat. It was actually my sweat dripping in it. I was just pouring sweat off. This was about 95 degrees in here. So the other problem it created was I based my timetable for taking the tape off on my test patch, which I'd done in the morning, 70-degree concrete, 75, 80 degree temperatures. By the afternoon, the concrete had heated up, and what I think my issue is I have little peel-offs everywhere, and my issue is that I let it dry too much. There are some bubbles in it. They don't bother me, they're real fine bubbles. I think that was from the speed of my trowel. There's a couple areas where they say in the directions to kind of force it down into the floor, kind of pack it down, but it really does have the consistency of mustard, so you can't really push on it that much. To me, it flowed into all my little cracks real well, but as I ran my trowel over, if I went too fast, I'd create little cavitations in the wake. Hayes, you gotta have your helmet, dude. Okay. For the paint, I did the 500 square foot coverage from GarageFlooring. One of my big worries when we were doing this project and I was going to order something from a company, whether it was Rust-Oleum or whoever, I was worried about not quite having enough. It seems like I'm not very good at estimating my paint or getting my coverage ratios right. So especially since my garage is 498 square feet on the outside, So maybe 460 on the inside, so real close to what Garage Flooring estimates as their total coverage. But they advertise that they put in at least 10% extra. Here we are now. I'm totally done with the project, and this is what I have left over. My kit for the TruAlloy floor covering included the TruAlloy paint, rollers, clear coat, and anti-slip for the clear coat, as well as the flake. We received 6 rollers, 4 gallons of floor paint, a lot more of this, 2 gallons of clear coat, and I'll tell you how I did it. Their instructions say to do 2 coats of this, and on the second coat, put on your flake. And we did 2 coats, and we started putting flake in on that back side back there, and I realized I was going to have a ton of extra material. So we stopped. This area here has 2 coats, and I stopped right about here, and then we put a 3rd coat on the garage floor. So as we did the 2nd coat, we let it dry without flake, and then I did a 3rd coat on this big part of the garage, and then I put on the flake. Now, and I still have a gallon left over. I was trying to put it on as heavy and as thick as I could. I definitely could have got 3 full heavy coats on here. And this is the flake they provided. Now, I'm not a big flake guy. I didn't want a lot of flake. Initially, my daughter was helping me over here. This dried, and then I'd had to do this by myself because she went to practice. That was the one job I kept trying to get out of, was doing the flake. It turned out okay. I did it. She did it lighter over here. I did it lighter back here, but there was so much flake left over, I thought, well, maybe it all, you know, you put on a lot and it kind of brushes off because you vacuum before you do the clear. So I started putting it on heavier and heavier and heavier as I came through the floor, so not a very even application. Once the TruAlloy with the flake on top of it dries, you come across with your shop vac and you just really scrub it, trying to get up any loose pieces. Let me tell you, I had almost total adhesion. Very, very, very few of the flakes I put on, even in dense piles, came off. This stuff really, really is pretty sticky. The other thing I noticed with the flake, as you can see here in the bag, there's small broken pieces down in here. Now this bag's been handled quite a bit. It didn't come from the factory with that much. But I'll tell you, what we did is we just scooped out this into a big bucket. You'll see it on the video, and spread it out like chicken seed. When you get down to the bottom of that bucket, refill it with clean flake from the top. Otherwise, you get a lot of this dust. As I was reaching way down into the bottom of the bucket, scraping the bottom of the bucket there, and a lot of this dust ended up on my floor. Doesn't really bother me, but I think it might some people, because you have a couple of spots you can see where I got to the bottom of the bucket, and you have a lot of that little tiny flake, almost looks like dirt. About halfway through, I kind of stopped and looked at some websites to see how much flake to apply, and people did talk about it as adding traction. And it really does. I mean, I really think it adds just a little bit of traction to the floor, which was one of my problems before, is the garage floor was pretty slippery. This is supposed to have about 2 to 6 hours of flash time in between coats. I found about 2.5 hours. My second coat I walked on a little bit early, but about 2.5 hours for me when it was 90 degrees out, flashed over just fine. And then once you get your last flash on this and the flakes are in and dry, then you vacuum off the flake and then you use the clear. Now you receive 2 gallons of clear. Garage Flooring says to put on 1 coat. So I tried to put on 1 really, really, really heavy coat throughout the entire garage. And I still had about 70% of a can, about 80% of a can left. Put that coat on the clear and I let it sit overnight. Next morning I woke up and I was like, man, I was feeling some of these flakes, and you could feel them standing pretty proud. And I just thought another coat would help the floor. I called Garage Flooring right when they opened, as always. Somebody answered the phone, talked to them, and they said, actually, anytime within 24 hours on the clear, you can recoat. My other question was, can I do a partial recoat? Because I had this entire thing coated in clear, but I knew I only had enough clear left now to do what I focused on was my heavy work areas across the front of the door. And then I do a lot of work right here, and I do a lot of work right here where the tools are. And so I called and they said, absolutely, not a problem. You can do a partial recoat. You can do a recoat as long as it's within 24 hours. So I put a second heavy coat on of the clear on just part of it. Seems to have adhered just fine. And it also kind of pulled down or covered up some of those real tall pieces of flake. I will say with the clear, it is almost impossible to see. I had situations with shade, with sun, all the lights on. It's really hard to see where you've been. So having a spotter would help with that. The other thing with the clear is they sell this non-slip additive right here.
and it is rigid garage floor tile. And anyway, there's this little silica additive. You put in your can and you mix it up with your drill mixer, and that's into the clear. I think it worked great. I actually saved quite a bit of it for that second coat I put on, and I mixed it in there really heavy. It ends up looking like milk. So you mix in a ton of the silica and you just whip it in there. Ends up looking like milk. I put it on and you can see there's a little bit of difference between the two coats, and you can see it in certain spots when the light's right on it. That second coat has a lot more additive. It was a little bit bumpier than spots where I didn't put a second coat on. But when you get around the door here, when you get around the doors, I put a ton of it. The whole idea was I didn't want to walk in here and fall on my butt. So I think that worked out really well. I would say my garage floor now after treatment has a lot more grip than it did when it was untreated. I like this product. Like I said, I'm not a garage floor paint guy. It's not often you get a kit with extras. So I have an extra gallon of floor paint. I have more flake than I ever know what to do with. I had more than enough of this silica additive, and I actually put a ton more in than most people would. I was able to put 2 coats of clear on. I would recommend Garage Flooring. I'll check back in a year later, let you know how it goes, because I work in here almost every day now. So one other thing, this kit right here, it's level 3, 500 square foot, is $600. When I did the Rust-Oleum professional calculations, I was right on the edge, so I was gonna have to buy an extra gallon of this, extra gallon of that, whatever. I was gonna be almost $800 into Rust-Oleum by the time I bought their crack filler and everything else. So this kit was $720. This was a good value, local company, great tech support, unbelievable tech support. I think it looks good. You know, like I say, it's not my style, but I think it looks pretty good. For me, utility outweighs it, so now I can roll my cart around, no problems. And I also have a grippier floor. So for me, it's a win-win deal. The final line item here is, this took so much time. I'm 6 days into this project now, and that doesn't include moving my stuff out. Cleaning took a lot of time.
I've been having a problem with this overspray. I knew my garage had some in it, but I didn't realize it was quite like this. And I didn't realize I had an overspray problem until I'd let the water and Dawn soap soak in a little bit. Now I was going to just try to scrape the floor, put soap on it, but I think I have to pressure wash. I've been getting a ton of this, so now that the floor is wet, get a little bit of Dawn on it. I'm getting a ton of this. This is overspray. Labor intensive, gonna take a little bit of time, but I think what I'm gonna do is dry out the garage, and then I'm just gonna scrape every square inch of it. I'm going to vacuum this up, and then I'm going to Dawn soap it again, and give it a good scrubbing and with the Dawn soap, rinse it all out, let it dry, and then I'm going to do my acid etching. I really want to make sure I get through all this stuff so my paint has something to adhere to. It's been a pretty long day to get to this point. Once again, did not have a pressure washer, or access to one that I felt would do a good enough job. So what we ended up doing was scrubbing with Dawn and scraping. Using a little bit of acid, not acid etch, but acid cleaner, ZEP, Zep acid cleaner, garage floor cleaner, where I needed to. Then I scrubbed with Dawn again and scraped. There was an area that I tested with the acid etch, the eco etch, and it worked pretty well, I think, but I did want to get more of the overspray of the Endurovar off of the floors.
Welcome to day 2 of finishing our garage floor. Yesterday was a long day. I tried to do the garage floor, prep the garage floor without a pressure washer. So I spent 10, 12 hours out here scrubbing, acid etching, scrubbing. Most of the floor went pretty well. I ran into a lot of problems in areas where I'd done a lot of spraying of polyurethane on woodworking projects, mainly the garage walls. I'd laid the panels out here on sawbucks and sprayed them, and so I have a heavy sheen on the floor. You can kind of see it right here in different areas of overspray. And so last night, the last thing I did was I acid etched this whole side to see if I could acid etch through the varnish or overspray. It didn't work. So here we are, big guns, 4,000 PSI pressure washer. We'll see how it does. It has plenty of pressure to clean the floors. I just don't want to rip off the top coat of the concrete.
Little bit by little, I'm able to get it off.
We're finally ready to apply product. Took me 2 days to clean the floor. I should have rented a pressure washer to start out with. Final analysis, I think it's a great kit. I'm happy with the product. Thought installation went really well. I would definitely choose a do-it-yourself installation on this. Oh, look, I can do this on my phone now. Now I always forget this part, but please like and I always forget this part. Please like and subscribe. It really does support the channel, helps us with our growth, and we're working on a lot of new products, a lot of new reviews, trying to get a lot of stuff done. You know, we're really working on the video quality, something I've never done before, but we're learning. Every day we're learning. Please like, subscribe, help the channel out, and we'll keep putting out quality material, trying to get better every time.